What's up? Missed you yesterday, man. Had some things going on. Your boy couldn't even make it back to the spot in time to even try to do anything. I'm myself up, man. Right. But told you, man, the goal is to do it every day. So I'm here. Gotta do some more marketing, but I don't want to do the marketing that's gonna distract you and lend itself to the ADHD. See the title of the pod today. But I'm not gonna start with that at all because something popped up in the black community. If you in black social media spaces, you understand what I'm talking about. It's this infatuation between denounced D9 members and the overly religious crowd, Christians, of course, and then the active D9 members who are also simultaneously Christian, going back and forth between whether being a part of the org is demented or sinful. I already did a show on that already. I done said it twice. I did a show prior where I spoke about the secret societies, the D9 and Masonic realm, and all the ins and outs of those circles. But I'm gonna touch on it just for a little bit because the intensity in which the conversation is flowing is unnecessary. One, I don't believe in denouncing because you're not getting that time back. By saying you're no longer a part of the organization, you're not getting the years that you participated back. So there's not much difference between just not participating and stepping away and denouncing, except for how much attention you want or you're trying to gather on your decision. When you step away, you just quietly move away from the organization. And when you're not, and when you're denouncing, you're making a public show of it, similar to when you join one of the organizations where you have a probate and you make a public show of it. So it's kind of backwards to claim that the behavior is wrong and then you carry out the behavior in accident. But that's besides the point, right? The real part I wanted to get into is not so much focused on the religious part or not even like the organization part, but more so the individuals, right? And I'm trying to get out the mellow flow, hearing my voice and just talking and like droning out. Nothing. Want to try to add a little bit of animation to myself, but when I get in thought like that, it's everything that I talk about seems so common sense to me. It seemed like so easy. Like if you just think about it, the answer right there. But it ain't like that for other people. And even being this old in life, I'm still figuring it out that not everybody thinks. So I gotta find a way to meet folk where they at. And it's not really, again, about the organization. It's not really about the religion. It's about the individuals. The problem that I see is folks lost the plot on both sides. Like, it's folks who don't know what the fuck Christianity is, part of my language. They don't know what Christianity is. But they being taught from somebody else's perspective. And they put 100% blind faith that perspective that they getting from this person is tried and true and correct, which is dangerous. You do the same thing when you join in one of the orgs where this is why your org was started. It's in the history, but at the same time, the people that bring you in, you trust in their perspective on how you supposed to carry yourself right now. The key part to both of that is if you don't have an understanding of the history, then you can't really judge whether what you're doing right now is in lockstep with why you started or why it was started to begin with, or whether where you jumping in at is just what you're doing now. Because you're not jumping in at the beginning. You jumping in after generations and generations and generations have passed. So whatever y'all doing now is just a sign of the times. And that is the real conversation when it comes to like denouncing Christianity versus Greek letter organizations. Like, really is a sign of the times, right? So one of the guys I noticed immediately when he denounced, just because the first thing he did was praise God, 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 and then daily posting segments of scripture. I'm like, yeah, I see where this is going. I know where this is going. It's the same as when you meet up with a friend after not seeing them for a while, and the first thing they hit you with is Grand Rising. Like, oh shit, here we go. You one of them now, ain't you? And the problem with that is, like, folks don't have a view of the full picture. Majority of the time, life is coming at you and it's so heavy that it shrinks your perspective and you can't see the forest for the trees. So if somebody's telling you the only direction to go is straight, you can't see left, right, up, down, backwards. You don't see any of the other different positions you could maneuver to. You only see straight. So if you join one of these organizations, right, and they're founded to say that this is what we stand for, it's in our paperwork, it's in our bylaws, it's in all our documents. Commit yourself to these things, which are all connected to assisting the Black community uplift itself from poverty. But even though that's what's in the documentation, you joining and what you've seen is a separate group of activities. We're going to smoke, we're going to drink, we're going to party, we're going to mess around, we're going to have fun, we're going to have beef with other organizations, and that's what our lifestyle is. So what you were started for and what you're currently doing don't correlate. But is that a problem with the organization, or is that a sign of the times? To me, just thinking this logically, it's a sign of the times. It's the people. Because if you look at the activity of the people today compared to the people who were in the organization 50 years ago, the action is completely different. The investment is different. The interests are different. They're acting accordingly to the sign of the times that they're living in. So the organization is operating properly as it should. And if it goes off the rails, that's not the fault of the org. It's the fault of the people in the org. It's the same with the government. Folks complain about the government all the time. But if you kept the entire same system in place, but you put people who prioritize different things, what would it look like? Because it's a capitalistic system. Now imagine people who believed in capitalism, make as much money as you can, but the main thing to them is you need to make it a certain way so that it's not an unfair advantage for others. Human rights will not be at a cost for capitalism. Same system, different interests. It will move different. And the biggest red flag I would see from folk who denounced or who jumped heavily into their religion is the entire system is broken. It was wrong to begin with. That means you're ignorant to your history. Like, because again, the guy who even sparked my interest in even relitigating the conversation was Alpha. And I'm like, bruh, how you gonna tell me that Greek letter organizations are devil worshiping when Martin Luther King is the most famous alpha that ever walked the earth, the most popular Greek letter organization member in history. He was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Man was probably the most popular religious figure in Black history. At the face of the civil rights movement. You telling me a man whose father was a reverend, so he grew up in the church, became a member of the church, encapsulated his purpose with his beliefs, was sinning before God by joining the organization. And his father and himself, neither one of them picked up on that. In the 60s and in the 50s, during Jim Crow, in the segregated South, in Baptist churches, there are no more religious people than Black folk that grew up in segregated South during Jim Crow. They getting killed and beat on every day. All they had to lean on was God. If they didn't see a problem with the organization, you probably should take their word for it. But this is also the sign of the times, right? We're in an age of information, which means we're also in an age of misinformation. So I can provide you with information that doesn't have to be validated. I just have to give you a beginning, a middle, and an end and sell you that story. And coming from the right person or coming at the right time or under the right circumstances, people will take that as law. Because again, the same way you jump into your religion is you're trusting somebody else's perspective to send you in the right direction with 100% trust. The thing about religion is subjective. So you don't need any facts. How do you validate whether your beliefs are true or not? It's a sentimental relationship. But the Greek letter organizations, the relationship isn't sentimental. We have bylaws. The bylaws tell you this is what we're doing. This is when we came together. This is why we're doing it. Stick to that. So you have a benchmark. All right, let's measure ourselves according to what they said they were here for. Are we achieving what they said we're here to achieve? Yes or no? Are we closer to achieving it or farther? And that's the real conversation. Like, I understand the frustration and why people denounce, but you're not denouncing because God told me that it's wrong. No, that's not it. Your perspective is skewed. Majority of people are denouncing because their organization that they joined, they're not fulfilling the actual interests and goals of said organization. Now, I broke it down in the video before. The whole purpose of the organization is we send in our best, our young, our healthy, our stable-minded, our strong, into an unforeseen territory, into an environment that a lot of us will never see or never experience. We want you to build a life there. We want you to gather knowledge, gather resources, gather experience, gather a network. And once you gather all of that, send some of it back. And even better, build a bridge so that a lot more of us can come. And that is the entire purpose of D9 organizations. It was hard to send Black kids to school during those times. Remember, it was still segregated. Majority of these organizations were founded in the early 1900s. The latest one in the 1960s, which is still segregated. The one that's slightly older than that, but the second youngest, 1920s. So during segregation, the Black community is fighting to be educated. So we need a space, a safe space for these extreme minority African American students to have an opportunity to fraternize, organize, and exist in the same space. An efficient way to do that, fraternity. People who are like-minded are going to come together, and we're going to gather our resources and our efforts to benefit our community, not as one individual, but now as a group. Simple. So the beef that you have isn't with the organization, not the roots of it. Your beef is with the people who are currently in the organization, how they're no longer fulfilling the interests of their founders. Nothing about Greek letter organizations has anything to do with Greek gods. People who are adding shit are being stupid. I've read bylaws, I've read guidelines, I've read the documentation. They ain't got shit to do with Greek anything. And almost in every single pledging process, you are saying God or whatever religion you believe in is going to come first. If I were to paint a picture for you, your religion, say you Christian, your religion comes at the top. This organization comes underneath God, and we're giving you this avenue to be the best Christian you can be. Because imagine trying to set up a after school program or a mentor program or a community education program or any kind of program to assist the Black community. You have to do it all by yourself. You have to make connections by yourself. You have to connect resources. You have to get money by yourself. You have to gather the materials by yourself. You have to market by yourself. You have to administer these things by yourself. You have to event plan by yourself. Imagine having to do all of that by yourself compared to we started an organization in order for all of us to streamline our efforts. Simple. Your frustration has nothing to do with your religious beliefs. Your frustration has to do with the fact that you either joined for the wrong reason, you misunderstood, and you invested the wrong time, energy, and care, thought into something that you didn't actively support, or the avenue that was supposed to be given to you in order to assist your community is not running as efficiently as it should. I understand, because that's the exact same situation that I endured and choose to denounce, not doing any of that, not doing anything performative. I went through the proper channels, and going through the proper channels, I learned firsthand that I'm not assisting my community to the best of my ability, and this space is not running as efficiently and effectively as it should in order for me to be a benefit to my community. And the groupthink has infected it so that I can't easily change the efficiency of said organization. So instead of denouncing, just step away, find a way to do it myself, or set up a situation in which I can reconvene under the same pretenses of wanting to assist my community. Simple. And if you don't have that kind of thought process and you can't track your logic the same way I just did, majority of the time that means that you either believe in a lie, you spouting a lie, or you full of shit. But that's up to you to figure out. I'm just trying to give you a game. But on to the actual topic, man. Athletes with podcasts. The athlete podcast game, like, is real crazy, man. It's a few of them that I mess with the long way. Like Gil's Arena, mess with it heavily. Nightcap, Ocho, and mess with it the long way. All the smoke, knuckleheads. But the one that got me in the athlete podcast, this is the one that doesn't get enough credit, doesn't get enough love. The cream of the crop. Still, there has not been a athlete podcast better than this one. The top of the top, Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose, Dave Jacoby, best former athlete podcast that ever has been. There was so much nuance and so many interesting graphics and so much information and so many different pivots and plots that they used to instill up in that. It was before its time. I wish ESPN could bring it back, but I don't think neither one of them work for ESPN no more. But Jalen and Jacoby was it. Like, got to get a people what they want. And it was cool because you had somebody who wasn't an athlete, but was cool as shit and knowledgeable about Black culture. And then you had an athlete that was cool as shit and wasn't just an athlete. It was somebody who had style, character, and personality, Jalen Rose. That has lent itself to a lot of athletes wanting more podcasts, because once upon a time, the only way an athlete was heard of is if a newspaper reporter came and asked questions. So the entirety of their life story and their legacy was written by outsiders, with them not having any input and the public having little to no perception of what that person was like behind closed doors. Then you start doing the sit-down interviews and the video interviews, the Ahmad Rashads, excuse me, Howard Cosell's. Used to get to it, give a little bit more personality only in this sit down. So that will only still even give you a pinch of what the athlete was really like. And social media blew up. One of the first athletes that was on Twitter and interacting with social media is Ocho Cinco, Chad Johnson. So athletes now had a platform where, hey, if somebody's lying on me and they're painting a false narrative on myself that's affecting my quality of life or my legacy, I can speak out against that. I can give you my point of view. I can give my perspective, give you a little bit of the game of what it's like behind these doors. That way, the team can't control how you see me. The owner of the whatever team can't control how the public sees me. The reporters that are cool with the team can't control that. I get to say what I need to say to express my point of view, because there's always been skewed. 67% of the story. 33% is the team and the owners. The other 33% is the media. And the most important 33% is the athletes themselves. But social media blew up. Now these athletes are on all social media. You can get in contact with them. You can see what's going on in their everyday life. But now we in the podcast space, and that goes beyond that. The podcast space is where you really get to know these athletes. The majority of the time, the social media is just branding opportunities, marketing, maybe significant life events if they use it for that, random stories or ideas, but nothing too in depth. Social media only gives you a specific perspective anyway. The podcast lets you know exactly how they come and exactly what kind of people they are. And the funny thing about the podcast game is a lot of folk get to see firsthand that these athletes ain't shit. Like, once upon a time, right, when you saw an athlete that were role models simply because of their athletic achievements, their accomplishments in whatever professional field they were in, basically was representative of what kind of people they were as well. If you one of the greatest players ever, you got to be one of the greatest people ever. And with these podcasts, you starting to realize that, you just was an athlete your whole life. Your parent at 2 and 3 years old had you playing this sport, so you were great at it. But you had no personal development. And it turns out that you're a great athlete and a piece of shit outside of that athletic arena. And it's refreshing to see, because we went through the entire cycle of, man, I get to act a certain way just to present myself properly, to get more marketing money, to get better branding. All right, bet, cool. We're going to go past that. Now, social media, I get to show you exactly what kind of life I'm living. Dang, it's lavish, ain't it? It's good, ain't it? But now podcast, I get to really let you know that I'm more than an athlete. And then you see how they talk. It's like, You ain't finished college, did you? That CTE catching you. You narcissistic. You starting to see all of these things. But that's what comes with it. You wanted more opportunity to be seen, be heard, and to give more input on your narrative. And at the same time, you're giving a lot more input on your narrative. Like, for example, right? And I like to go through each one of these podcasts to use examples, real life examples, because people need to hear that shit. People need to see it. The biggest example, right, probably be Cam Newton. Cam Newton probably top 5 greatest college football seasons ever for an individual. Came to the NFL. Superman was legit. Only person that I've ever seen in the NFL is like, yeah, I'm just one man team. That man was like Madden 04 Michael Vick in real life. And that was crazy. And went through his career, had his ups and downs. Always respected. He was one of the greatest players to play. Wasn't for a prolonged period of time to get him into the Hall of Fame, but he was great. His career ended. And then as he was starting to wind down, you started to see more of him in the public space, speaking, doing more interviews, doing more material, putting out more content. Then his podcast, Fourth and Wham, popped up. Like, all right, cool. And I don't know if this is part of his podcast or whether it's like a separate thing altogether where he does a talk show. But somebody should have told him that wasn't a good idea. I try not to judge folk, but you get into a situation where you sitting and you looking at it and you like, bro, what the fuck is you talking about? I remember one clip, right? And it's not even something major. I don't remember it verbatim. I just remember the very outline of it was just, I can't believe somebody said that in front of a camera, right? Because I guess his personal life, bro, got like a bunch of kids by multiple women. I'm like, that's stereotypical of an athlete. It's not cool for anybody to do, especially if you're not like in a polygamous relationship and you taking care of all of them. But if it's just you, just having kids and then moving on to the next, it's kind of messed up. And what made me revisit the show was he had a second quote that came out, and the quote was like, I told my baby mama, if a man don't love you and all 5 of your kids, he ain't the one for you. I'm like, man, who let this, come on, man. Who on this team published that? Who said, yeah, this is what we need to hear? It's crazy to hear, because then you go back to the show I'm speaking about. He was talking to some man. He was like, man, you creating a lot of broken homes, and that's messed up. And I did a show about that before too. Epigenetics and the child development process, how they need both parents in the household in order for them to develop properly. But again, you assume athletes are role models and they understand these things, but you get them to talk and you see them a lot more, you realize that they don't know nothing but whatever that ball is for that game. They're fake football players. They don't understand anything but how pigskin works and how to maneuver those 11 people. They don't know anything about social life. It's wild. So when he says, man, a woman got to know it's a lot that come with me, but it's going to be worth it. On one side, I'm understanding that's how you become a great athlete is you got to have that ego. You got to believe that I'm the greatest thing on this field. But that's when you see the shortcomings of parenting coming, because once you leave the field, you can't have the same personality. Life is not football and football is not life. They might intertwine through lessons, but it ain't the same thing. So when he's saying, yeah, it's a lot that come with me, but baby, it's worth it. You ain't going to be able to live a lifestyle like this unless you mess with somebody like me. I'm like, man, who man's is this? I mean, women are gonna let him hit because he got money. I'm like, I ain't the type to step in no man way or hate on him, but listening to him, I'm like, yeah, this is not something that I would let kids listen to or should be broadcast, because that's terrible advice. That's like me going, man, shoot, I let my car run hot and I changed my oil. I put some canola oil in my car. Long as it run hot, it's gonna run clean. Can't let people just say that, because then somebody else gonna try it, and nah. So when he's saying it, he's like, yeah, you ain't gonna live this lifestyle with nobody but me. Like, it's not what you wanna. That's a red flag. If I got sisters or if I got any female family members, I'm telling them, hey man, you avoid them. Them is the type that you run away from fast. And then the folk on the podcast hitting with a, man, you having all of these kids, man, that's not right. You creating broken homes and you're not even married. So you doing this and you have no intention of even taking care of these women long term. And that man reply was, Jesus wasn't married. Nigga. That man really said, mind blown, Jesus wasn't married. And cuz hitting with a Jesus didn't have no kids. When that point hit, conversation got changed, diverted into a whole nother conversation. It was at that moment I was like, yeah, you not a good person. And unless it's football related, I'm not listening to nothing you got to say, because you are a terrible person. The way you think is bad. Like, you are a detriment to society. Your personality is detrimental to society. But we're in an age where you can't tell folk nothing, or otherwise you a hater. Like, should I just be a hater then? Because in my space, in my environment, I control my environment. Anything that's some bullshit, it ain't gonna fly around here. So if you're around me or if it's in front of me, I'm regulating that. Nah, we can't do that. I'm gonna tell you that we can't do that. And then I'm knowledgeable enough to tell you why we're not doing that. And that's just one example, right? And Cam Newton's an entertaining individual, but your character shows up more than your ego does. And your character will take you farther than your ego does. But if you move off ego and not character, I got to move around you. And then there's another example, right? Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo used to be one of my favorite players too. Just because bully ball, toughness, just that grit was cool. His wasn't as bad as Cam's, but it was still bad where character showed up. Where they talking about the Darren Peterson kid supposed to go number one. They're like, yeah, he quitting on this team. In the middle of games, just subbing himself out. Just, yeah, I ain't doing this no more. In the middle of the season. As a professional, you know you're supposed to show up, you're supposed to do your job. And college kids are professionals now. You're getting paid to play. That's your profession. And what came out of his mouth wasn't, hey, you need to be professional. This is how you're supposed to conduct yourself. This is how you carry yourself. He didn't address the issue at all. Instead, this is why you should let kids come out of high school. When you normal and you're not an athlete, you're closer to everyday happiness, everyday conversations where you understand to have a conversation, the first thing you have to do is stay on topic, right? So when the first comment somebody makes about a topic is a completely different topic, you know what they about to give you is some bullshit. And again, from that moment there, I'm just like, yeah, you're supposed to be unbiased and you're supposed to give a professional point of view from somebody who's a former professional athlete. And what you gave was not the professional, on topic, or even like relatable. You hit I'm going to try to build in an excuse for somebody to try to be sympathetic just because you know them. And the thing about the podcast space is you have to give perspective and you have to give logic behind your perspective, and you have to be consistent because it's built on your character and your personality and not your achievements. So every conversation has to correlate with a previous conversation because it shows what kind of person you are. So if you wishy-washy between stances or circumstances, change your conversation, that says a lot about your person. Moving around that, right? Nightcap. The nightcap. Entertaining, man. And Ocho Cinco is hilarious. Of anybody that's consistent, Ocho Cinco probably the most consistent athlete I've ever seen in my life. He's not the biggest role model by far. Not at all. But consistency, that man is consistent. Super consistent. He been acting cheap, chasing women, and making jokes since I've ever even heard of him, man. He's still like that. But Shannon Sharp is the one that's like, it make it hard to watch the show. Because remember following him, he's one of my favorite athletes too. Denver Broncos, 84, playing the blitz games, tight end, unstoppable. Even on Madden, unstoppable. Seen him go to CBS, then after CBS, Fox, then from Fox to ESPN, then the Nightcap. So watching the entire journey. The thing that he always wanted to say was being unbiased. That's a good model to create. That's a good thing to stand on, to be unbiased and to give even keel perspective. But anytime the conversation is about LeBron James, that perspective goes out the window. And this is the third and final example of an athlete, right? Because you can go through each one of their podcasts and you can see just what kind of character they have. And then with a lot of them who are still active, you can connect their character to their current accomplishment, like Paul George. But Shannon Sharp, right? Conversation about LeBron. I'm like, all right, if LeBron is your favorite player, let it be your favorite player. But don't let your preference for the competitor outweigh your morality and your consistency. Like, Michael Jordan be my favorite player. No excuse for what his son be doing. Like, nah, I ain't trying to make no excuses. Nah, that's wild. Buddy need to chill. There's something wrong with him. Simple. Peyton Manning. Oh, man. Yeah, love Peyton. Even still, these were his shortcomings. Regardless of those shortcomings, I still appreciate the competition, the accomplishment, and the achievement. So I can be consistent. The man with LeBron is unhealthy. The conversation was about LeBron James' relationship with Jaylen Brown. He was like, yeah, I'm cool with him for the most part, except for the shit he said about Bronny. And then Shannon Sharp was like, man, that is that man's child. Of course he gonna have beef when you talking about his child. And I'm like, it's nasty. It's nasty. It doesn't matter whether that's your child or not. If your child is now one of my peers, my job is to analyze, assess, and then move accordingly. My assessment is he shouldn't be here because he's unprepared. I've analyzed his game. There's little that he can do to impact the NBA game on this level. Very little. Move accordingly. If I see him on the court, I'm going to take advantage of him. So he probably shouldn't be on the court. And it's honest because Bronny keep getting sent back to the G League. That man like a steak that was ordered well done and keep coming back pink. It keeps sending it back. Come back up. Nope, still not ready. Keep sending it back. And folks defending LeBron. I'm like, bro, this ain't got nothing to do with LeBron. He's like, yeah, people want to attack LeBron's son. Now they couldn't attack LeBron. No, bro. Once you become an equal, I have to treat you like an equal. That's the thing about being consistent is you can't have it both ways, bro. Like, if you want him to be in the league because he's LeBron's son and treat him like a token player, then he'll get treated like a token player where you just here because your dad. Cool. We're not going to assess you. We're not going to judge you. We're going to, hey, that's LeBron's son. It's the +1. We're not even going off the table. But that's not how it's being presented to folk. Being presented is he's an NBA prospect. He deserves a fair shot. He's not LeBron James' son. He is Bronny James, NBA player. All right, cool. So I'm assessing him as LeBron James Jr., Bronny James, the NBA player. No, man, you taking shots at him because he's LeBron's son. You can't have it both ways. And that's the problem with how LeBron went about bringing his son into the league. Is you can't flex your muscle saying that I'm going to do everything I can to get him here. And then at the same time, expect your son to get the respect as if he did it by himself. And I'm cool if that's the route you want to take, where you pull some strings to get your son there. You got to be shameless about it. I got him here, and what? So that way people can't judge him based off of his talent. They're not going to put that on him. But when you're trying to straddle the fence of, he's good enough to be here, and I also did everything to get him here, you can't have it both ways. You got to pick one and then let people adjust accordingly. When you're inconsistent, that's when you start having issues. You got to give people the true story, stick with the true story, and then be shameless about it. Because when you're not consistent, that's when you become sensitive. And it's one of my favorite sayings, bro. There's no such thing as a hard truth. There's just the truth, and then there's your sensitivity to it. And when you get on these podcasts and you start seeing these athletes like being so inconsistent and being sensitive, I'm like, bro, you can't do that. You wanted the space, then you got to accept everything that comes with the space. Your character is being judged, not just the content. The entertainment space, folks are getting judged by their creativity, their ability, the content they putting out, and their character. There's a reason why Alicia Rashad, Denzel, Loretta Devine, Cicely Tyson, Sam Jackson, James Earl Jones, Sidney Poitier, Maya Angelou, Whoopi Goldberg. There's a reason that they're up here. And then you got the layer underneath them of Jada Pinkett, Will Smith, Halle Berry, Tom Cruise. Like, you got the people who got great talent, but they're not the most pristine personality-wise. People are going to be viewed different because you're being judged different. It's the same thing with the podcast space. Yeah, you were a great athlete. That's cool, but what kind of person are you? You're going to be consistent. And not being consistent, that's, boy, it could do you in, boy. I'm telling you. Let people find out that you playing and you're not for real. Or that you'll say anything or do anything. You'll flop quick. Stacey Dash used to mean something in the black community. She used to be bad. Man, Stacey Dash in the movie? Shoot, let's see what they talking about, man. Shit. Now folks don't care what she look like. Get her out my face. Move her all the way around. That inconsistency, you gotta figure out your lane and stick to it. And it's not just black community, it's everybody. When they figure out that you playing, move around. Another example, right? A guy who's, in the media for like directors and producers and folk, they might have a problem with Shia LaBeouf. The consumer, we love him. Can't do no wrong. Shia LaBeouf is going to hit whatever it is, he's going to kill it. Because his personality is consistent. Man, he hasn't been the most he's not the most model-esque person. It doesn't matter. He's consistent. He's himself. Flawed. But the talent is there. He's consistent. We don't care what your flaws are as long as you're consistent. The athletes going in the podcast space, they need to mimic Skip Bayless. Man, Skip Bayless is wrong all the time. Don't matter. He's consistent. Bill Simmons, wrong all the time. Consistent. Colin Cowherd might say some of the most outrageous shit ever. Consistent. Nobody cares about your athleticism because you're not playing one-on-one in the podcast space. You're showing your conversation. You're showing your character. You're expressing your ability to communicate. And then you're making content with it. So we're not judging you on the same things that made you successful when you're competing. That's a completely different field. But folks need to start assessing that within themselves and understanding that too. And stop just tapping in just because that somebody was familiar. Because the connection I'm going to make with the beginning of the show and the podcast conversation part of the show is you got to be consistent. And you have to be aware. Because if you're not aware of what's going on, you can be led down a crazy path that you don't even want to get on. Sometimes you don't even wake up from that path. You die before you realize that you went in the wrong direction. So you promoting yourself as something and you leading yourself with ego. Your ego is going to lie to you. You got to get away from being ego-led. You got to get into being character-led, because there's not a situation in which your character can be broken. Impossible. You can go through the worst situations in life. Your character is going to be your character. You can go through the best situations in life. Your character is going to be your character. If you're pessimistic when things are good, you're going to be pessimistic when things are bad. If you optimistic when things are good, you're going to be optimistic when things are bad. If you kind when you have nothing, you tend to be kind when you have surplus. But your ego will lie to you. Quick. Your ego will tell you you're good, then you fail. Your ego will tell you, man, you're going to fail because you're a failure. Then when you succeed, there's no answer. Your ego is nothing but the sum of results that have already been gathered. It doesn't take or factor in the possibility of any other outcome than the one you already lived. Up to this point, I've been the greatest football player on every field I've been in. So my ego tells me I'm going to be the greatest football player on every field I go on. There's going to come a time where you're not the best football player, and then it's going to affect your ego. Compared to, I'm the hardest worker on every field that I'm on. I have to work hard. My character says work hard. When you're not the hardest worker, your character says, all right, I need to work to be the hardest worker. You got to seek to understand. You got to build your character and get away from ego-driven decisions. Because when you move with ego, you can be misled. You can be manipulated. You can be turned inside out quick. But your character is going to be consistent. And folks got to remember that. Not just for athletes and role models, not for civil rights leaders, not for politicians, teachers, doctors, lawyers, not just for all of these individuals, but for yourself in everyday life. People are watching you. Just the same way you're watching others. You might not even pick up on it, but you're picking up mannerisms and behaviors and adjusting. People are doing the same thing to you. So when you're being consistent, people are going to pick up on it. And the funny thing about it is they'll either get in where they fit in or they'll get out your way. And either way, that's the best result you can ask for. What else could you ask for? I mean, really. I'll get with you next time, man.
Yeah.